Carol Rogers. If Scientology doesn't believe its techniques will work on criminals, what is the point of Criminon? Is it just publicity and money? Seems like a dichotomy. This is a great question because it just requires clarification of what I and others have talked about before. The deal with criminality in Scientology is that if you are an active criminal, currently engaged in criminal activities, then Scientology isn't going to work on you. Not if you have a criminal background or a criminal past. It's not the criminal mind that Scientology thinks it doesn't work on. It's the fact that the person who is trying to avail themselves of Scientology or Dianetics has to withhold information from the auditor or from the organization because they're doing right now criminal things. You know, and this has come up, this has happened before in Scientology's history, that people who are, you know, house robbers or jewelry thieves or you know, con guys have come in to avail themselves of this because they are sold on Dianetics and Scientology, working for them just like anybody else is. And then it comes up that they are doing criminal stuff and they're told, hey, you know, you're going to have to knock that off, because what it does is it sets up this mental problem for you where you can't be telling us everything you're doing because you're doing things that are against the law. And we can't have any of that. So, because you're not going to get better if you can't tell us what's on your mind in your auditing sessions. Okay, that's the most fundamental level theory of it, right? The other part of the theory, of course, is that if somebody is victimizing other people by stealing their stuff, beating them up, murdering them, whatever, that's also going to create some fairly large mental barriers to their own self-improvement, because they're actively going around, you know, not improving other people in a very proactive manner, to say the least. So, so there, you know, Hubbard's, there's a thing called an overt act in Scientology. It's when you do something bad or wrong, or against the society's moral codes or the laws. Hubbard said that spiritually this creates this sort of, you know, pulling in your flippers and introverting and sucking all of your attention in on you because you're solving your problems with a criminal solution. This is not going to lead you to down a road of spiritual improvement and increased spiritual ability because you're just victimizing other people. I think that makes sense, right? Criminon, as a program, goes into prisons and tries to rehabilitate criminals by teaching them a moral code. And that in and of itself is not necessarily a bad idea. The moral code they use is The Way to Happiness, a rather innocuous book, really. When you compare it to other Scientology books, The Way to Happiness has actually got some pretty good stuff in it. Don't steal, don't murder, don't harm a person of goodwill, support, you know, a government run and, you know, for all the people. There's a lot of good precepts in there. I think there's 20 or 21 of them. And while I'll never, you know, say, okay, let's go pass out Way to Happiness books because it's got L. Ron Hubbard's name right on it and that's going to lead to more nonsense. The idea of instilling a moral code in people who have been, you know, sequestered away from society because they cannot keep up a moral code of some kind, you know, you can reach some people with that. You're not going to reach everybody with it. There's people in prison for a multitude of reasons, and all kinds of factors have gone into why they are criminals. I mean, hell, some of them wouldn't even be able to read the literature because they can't read. So, and that's a big reason for some people to go, you know, into the world of criminality. So there's a multitude of reasons there, but the theory is that when a person's in prison, they're no longer doing the same things that put them in prison. So they should be able to now respond to an attempt to rehabilitate them. And of course, if we had the right means and methods of rehabilitating people, if we knew exactly what it was that was going to rehabilitate people, that's actually kind of the point of prison in the first place. At least it should be. and it is in other countries. I know it's not really in the United States. I've done a podcast on that and on private prisons and stuff. We have real problems in the United States with prison being a punishment, not rehabilitation. But that's a whole other issue. So that's the theory that Scientology goes in on, and that's why it makes sense, you know, within Scientology's own logic, for them to be going after doing Criminon programs. And Criminon is not a lucrative part of Scientology. Which is why it's also not something that's stressed a lot. The only way Criminon happens within the world of Scientology is when individual Scientologists take it upon themselves to go do the volunteer work at the prisons, pay for the books, do the time with the inmates to teach them and get them through the program, even if it's by correspondence or in person. I think they've done both. So that's about as much as I can say about that, but I think that will help make that make sense.